This week in fantasy movies, Star Wars can't get its act together, and it's making life difficult for everyone involved. Netflix continues its crusade against the person who leaked a bunch of episodes, and the internet is up in arms about the How to Train Your Dragon remake. It's a whole host of news this week in fantasy movies. Some of it is even our third time trying to tell you about it, so you better believe we're just dying to tell you everything. Let's go! First up, it's 100 Years of Solitude, a Spanish-language historical epic about a mythical town where magic is real, but the revolution comes to its doorstep.
Estamos mamados de que decidan por nosotros.
Coming to Netflix December 11th.
梦见一个人很年轻，跟你长得很像。
Then we've got A Legend. Starring Jackie Chan, this martial arts epic is a legacy sequel to his earlier Chinese blockbuster, The Myth. And honestly, it's just wild that China has been doing this well for long enough that now they even have legacy sequels.
Sounds like I gotta dive in and finally see these movies.
I'm surprised you haven't. Then we have an early preview at Shabake, adapting a series of historical fantasy novels set in feudal Japan. Welcome to Japan, Elf-san, and another trailer for I May Be a Guild Receptionist, premiering January 10th. Then we've got a dramatic trailer for the 7th and final season of The Dragon Prince.
We've come this far.
No turning back.
Coming to Netflix December 19th.
Finally, we will have our revenge.
And the gamers are stoked for this next one. A new trailer for Sonic 3.
With shadows powered, we can rule humanity.
There's good reason for it. Word on the street is that this is going to adapt one of the most beloved arcs from the anime, complete with the dark backstory for Shadow the Hedgehog.
When we're done, there won't be anything left to rule.
That actually is real scary.
But don't feel like it's all angst all the time. Eggman blows up the frickin' moon. Coming to theaters December 20th. Then Disney trickled out another early look at the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake, where Stitch rampages a sandcastle, just like he did in the original movie, but less fun.
When you carry this axe, you carry all of us with you.
Finally, we got our first trailer for the live-action How to Train Your Dragon remake. Actually, a still from this trailer leaked online the other week, and Universal thought it was so dangerous that they felt the need to take it down. But honestly, this is so bland. Shot for shot, it's identical to the original film. And it just begs the question, why? Like, we don't need this. How to Train Your Dragon is a perfect movie, as is, and being animated makes it no less valid than its live-action counterparts. What we need is more original fantasy movies.
I decided to revisit How to Train Your Dragon because it felt like an amazing opportunity to not only direct a live-action movie, but to be jumping back into a world that I frankly miss.
Following the trailer drop, Universal put out this little behind-the-scenes promotional bit where Dean DeBlois waxes poetic about making the original animated film. But if we're being honest, the justification is paper-thin at best. He's a talented guy, and there is no shortage of new stories you could tell around Burke. In fact, we got a whole TV show worth of it over on Netflix. So if you miss these characters and this world, you can tell new stories. But instead, Universal made the active choice to go back to the old movie and steal moves from Disney right out of their playbook.
My hope is that those who had seen and loved the How to Train Your Dragon films will be keen to see what we've done, because it comes from a place of love and it comes from a place of respect.
Sorry, Dean, but our bullshit detectors are off the chart on this one. That may be true for you personally, but that is not the motivation at Universal. They just want an easy nostalgia bait cash grab.
Dad, I can't kill dragons.
But you will.
Coming to theaters June 13th. Whether we like it or not. Warner Brothers is developing a Forbidden Planet remake, produced by Emma Watts, a rising star in the C-suite, and written by Hugo Award-winning comic book writer Brian K. Vaughan. This is actually the result of a long saga where James Cameron wanted to direct it, but the rights were just a mess. but it seems like it's resolved now. And crucially, Emma Watts has worked with Cameron before on Alita: Battle Angel, and given how we've got a writer attached and a producer, it could just be a matter of time before Cameron comes back in to direct this movie. I believe that there's more to this than the Deadline report would lead us to believe. And a piece by The Hollywood Reporter has detailed Lucasfilm's, let's call it helter-skelter process when it comes to developing new Star Wars stuff. On the one hand, you've got the TV shows where they're just dropping new stuff left and right, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. That is what led to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau getting to make their Mandalorian and Grogu movie. But that one is an outlier, because on the movie side, you've got different visions of different directors, and they all interpret differently what Star Wars even is, all with overlapping timelines, and it's impossible to move anything forward because they all treat it like it's a religion. One source literally compared making new Star Wars movies to creating another New Testament. And in all of this, apparently there's a bit of a mad scramble to feature Rey, played by Daisy Ridley. One source even called her their most valuable cinematic asset. Which, like, okay, but you do have other characters. What about Finn? They never saw that character through. What an amazing character idea. A rebelling stormtrooper? Think of the possibilities. And then we almost got none of that. I don't know. It seems like Lucasfilm is stuck with tunnel vision here. Of all the ideas the Hollywood Reporter highlighted here, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie makes the most sense because it actually gives us a new era of Star Wars to explore. But no, it's a nostalgia-based enterprise, which means they're only ever going to play the hits and forget that new stuff is ever allowed, let alone possible. Unless it's Star Wars Visions, which they just renewed for season 3 and will probably sweep under the rug again because Disney actively refuses to market any of its anime. And then, apparently J.K. Rowling's weird obsession with denying that trans people exist is somehow not too spicy for HBO. In a Q&A, a reporter asked Casey Bloys, CEO at HBO and Max, about whether Rowling's passionate views about trans issues have affected the casting process. Bloys responded that Rowling has been very involved up to this point, going so far as selecting the writers and directors. He imagines she'll have opinions on casting. So please, never forget that no matter how you personally feel about the books or the movies, Rowling will use her influence to make sure her weird views on trans people get reflected in the show. Bloys is being pretty cavalier about the whole thing. Last year, he said HBO's priority is what's on the screen, but this kind of separating the art from the artist attitude doesn't work when the artist is still alive and actively endangering the lives of trans people with her billionaire wealth. Bloys can say that Rowling's involvement hasn't affected casting or the hiring process, but actual Hollywood screenwriters are now telling their agents to not submit them as potential writers for the show. And of course, the fan culture that grew around this franchise in the first place has discovered that Rowling has poisoned the well. In a piece by Variety, the old fan website The Leaky Cauldron hasn't made a new episode of Pottercast since March of last year, because talking about Harry Potter leaves them feeling angry and depressed. At this point, the best thing we can do is make this project totally irrelevant, and HBO would be wise to shut the whole thing down before it causes actual harm to actual people. But they're not going to do that because they took the opportunity on Trans Day of Remembrance to double down on their partnership with Rowling and say that her personal views don't matter to them. Apparently to them, saying trans people don't exist is somehow a personal view and not a ludicrously hateful take that puts actual people in actual danger. So yeah, Bloys can say HBO only cares about what's on the screen, but their actions show a complete disdain for the LGBTQ+ community and the money that they can bring in. Speaking of money, let's do the numbers. In the box office, Moana 2 topped off the charts, earning $135 million. Crazy. Wicked held its own, and Gladiator 2 made a little more than half of what it made the weekend before. Further down on the list, Red 1 continues to bomb at number 4. It spent $250 million just on production, but it barely earned $13 million this weekend, which is the same as last weekend. Apparently that's okay though, because I guess Amazon is banking on the film doing really good on Prime. But we've been tracking these kinds of numbers long enough to know that streaming hype generally falls in line with box office hype. Unless a film is an actual sleeper hit like The Substance, and that's not what Amazon has here. What they have is a dud. Going further down the list, Venom: The Last Dance drops to number 7, and The Wild Robot hovers in 9th place. On the streaming charts, Gladiator remains at the top spot, followed again by The Substance and Alien Romulus. Further down the list, The Wizard of Oz catapulted up to number 6 thanks to Wicked smashing the box office, and The Wild Robot enters the video-on-demand scene at number 7. Over on the series charts, From regains the top spot with Dune Prophecy at number 4. Arcane pops back into the charts at number 7, and Silo slides down to number 8. And on another note, clearly, not enough of you took us seriously when we said Glayahan and the Knaves of Industry is streaming over on Tubi. Right now. But guess what? It's also on Blu-ray. That's right, you can hold a physical copy in your hands. Unlike me, I have to pretend. This movie has everything. A bartender who knows all, a princess trying to overthrow her evil overlord of a father, a deadbeat stoner brother trying to coast in and take her place, and that's just the side characters. So what are you waiting for? Visit glayahan.com to learn more, or click the link in the description to pick up a copy to hold in your actual physical human hands. I would do the same, but apparently my hands are not human. In the wake of the box office flop of Transformers 1 earlier this year, Hasbro has announced it's going to stop financing movies altogether. So if you wanted to see another Dungeons & Dragons movie, or a Power Rangers reboot, or a My Little Pony movie, those plans are done for. And while this isn't a huge surprise, it is disappointing. Honor Among Thieves was the best movie of 2023, in a great year for movies, and Transformers 1 picked up some very positive reviews. Hasbro's track record has some damn good movies, but their marketing teams fumbled the bag when it came time to actually tell people about them. We wouldn't have known about Transformers 1 if it weren't for making this very show, and plenty of people were surprised to hear they made another D&D movie. So it's no wonder they flopped. If a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, it might as well have not made a sound. Following up on our coverage a few months ago, Netflix got a judge in the Northern District of California to issue a subpoena to Discord, demanding that they identify the person behind what the leaker calls the worst leak in streaming history.
ReZero, Dan to Dan, Terminator Zero, the Ranma 1/2 remake, the entirety of the Mononoke movie, 5 episodes of Arcane Season 2, Spellbound, and more.
And on one hand, I understand wanting to crack down on leakers and make an example of them. But on the other hand, all of the leaks are already out in their official, completed version. So yeah, shame the leaker, plug the hole. But at this point, if there was any damage, it's all paved over already. In other Arcane news, fans are in hysterics about how the edits for China bent over backwards to paper over the lesbian relationships in the show. Anyway, the show landed a coveted 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. At the same time, co-creator Christian Linke admitted in an interview with Tech Radar that they hear fans' frustrations about how rushed the final season felt, and they want to learn from it as they keep making new shows. And they do want to make more shows. Linke even confirmed that the next League of Legends series has already been in development for a year, and they want to show off Noxus, Iona, and Demacia in future shows. Now, before you get too excited, just because they listed 3 regions doesn't mean it's 3 shows. Riot Games co-founder Mark Merrill clarified on Twitter that they're actually exploring a bunch of different shows. In another debunked rumor, a Universal spokesperson told The Hollywood Reporter that Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were paid the same rate for their work on Wicked. Ryan Reynolds' company Maximum Effort is currently working on a Mighty Mouse adaptation for Paramount, with a script in the works by Matt Lieberman, the writer of Free Guy. Over in Singapore, the Asia TV forum and market will get a first glimpse at Detective Daji, an Asian-themed supernatural crime drama in development starring Taiwanese actor Puff Kuo. The show is participating in a pitch competition over there, with a successful pitch having a chance at a co-production deal, which is a rare thing in the film and TV industry. It follows Daji Su, a cop who shares her body with a fox spirit that gives her magical kung fu powers, but has to feed on humans to replenish her chi. So it's not hard to see how the tension at play between her two natures is gonna work here. We've got our fingers crossed that the team over at Organic Media Group gets what they need to make this show happen. Then in Japan, Disney made a huge bet, ordering 3 whole seasons of a new anime adaptation of the smartphone game Twisted Wonderland, coming to Disney Plus in October 2025. Of course, Disney needs to actually promote its anime if it wants us to take it seriously. Kadokawa is producing an anime adaptation of the manga Clevitus, the king of magical beasts, the baby, and the corpse hero. But we can't ignore the growing anime giant that is Sony. Reuters reports that the tech and entertainment giant is in talks to acquire Japanese publisher Kadokawa, owner of a huge catalog of anime franchises like Re:Zero, Dungeon Meshi, and Mushoku Tensei. This is all part of Sony's recent push to become the ultimate destination for anime fans, which we first saw with its acquisition of Crunchyroll and merger with Funimation back in February. The people behind The Expanse, going by the pen name James S.A. Corey, are set to debut a new TV series at Amazon. The Captive War promises galactic empires, alien civilizations, and the transformative power of individuality in a totalitarian world. Certainly not an ideology present in the real world with real-world ramifications. We've got some behind-the-scenes photos for Mickey 17, along with the first glimpse of the Frankenstein adaptation by Mexico's spooky sweetheart Guillermo del Toro. All we have so far is a single image, but it looks like we've got Oscar Isaac as Dr. Frankenstein, standing in his laboratory. It's the exact sort of grotesque, beautiful imagery you would expect from Del Toro. Another fantastic addition to a long line of beautifully gothic films. And finally, Deadline reports that Sky Studios has signed on to adapt Rivers of London, the urban fantasy book series by Ben Arondovich. The books follow Constable Peter Grant, a young officer in London's Metropolitan Police, who's recruited into a small branch that deals with magic and the supernatural. He becomes England's first apprentice wizard in over 70 years and goes on a bunch of crime-solving adventures. You know, like the Dresden Files, with more institutional support. This week, Disney bumped the Skeleton Crew premiere from Tuesday up to Monday, so it's already out right now. On Thursday, we had the Netflix shows Gentry Chow vs. the Underworld and Beastars, both dropping all at once. And 4 movies hit the theaters the same day. We have an adaptation of The Odyssey, but only the final chapter, the movie sequel to an isekai series, a machismo-laden lycanthrope apocalypse, and a teenage angsty tech apocalypse. Thanks for hanging out with us this week in fantasy movies. Give us a like on your way out and go click the link in the description to watch Gleahan before it's too late. It's not going anywhere. We just really want you to watch it because it's good. We'll have more in fantasy movies next week.